You'll have to forgive any errors. Most of this I've written via voice to text on my notes app. I couldn't bring myself to maintain a real relationship with my younger sister, Star, until last year when she was 21 and I was 29. Part of that was our age gap growing up. She could never understand my yearning for our mother, whom Star had barely any memories of before her death. But I also think she blamed me for leaving when she was 12, as I moved out of home with a friend and left her to manage our father, a man who'd started slowly pickling himself via whiskey in the years prior. He was never abusive or evil. I wouldn't do that to her. He just wasn't present. I imagine that was hard for her. Star's and my adult relationship mostly centers on hiking. We'd go hiking on the flats every Sunday. It's a tourist trail over a rural crest with views of a long abandoned pasture farm in the east and nice views at sunrise. It was 2 Saturdays ago I called her to let her down and told her I'd accompany my husband to his appointment the next morning rather than go on the hike with her. To my surprise, Star planned to complete the hike alone. This would be the first time either of us did it alone, but it's a short trail designed for out-of-towners to complete in half an hour. She didn't come back. I tried calling Star every hour between 2 p.m. and midnight that Sunday before eventually calling the police. My husband and I stood at the entrance of the trail while police officers and scent dogs trawled the hike until sunrise. By noon, our suburb was plastered with missing posters for Star. A nice young officer had let me detail the poster, choosing everything: the font style, the word size. I picked a photo from her Instagram, uploaded a few months ago. It's a nice photo, and she's smiling. But just like in real life, there's something inscrutable about Star's smile. It's friendly, yes, but she seems full of secrets. It took a week of no real news for me to try walking the trail myself to find her Saturday this morning. I didn't tell anyone, not even my husband. I sensed he'd talk me out of it. The trail starts at a dirt path with woods on both sides. It doesn't open up to views for a little while. I don't know what I thought I'd find that police and the dogs had missed. It was why I didn't initially get too excited when I came across a tear of fabric stuck on an exposed branch, waist height. I ran the fabric between my fingers. It was nice fabric, purple, about 6 inches long, as if torn from a woman's old-fashioned dinner gown. I decided to take a turn off the path at this point, like I was following a treasure trail. The space with the branch led down an unofficial pathway toward a cliffside. The trees thinned the further I went, and I had to duck under hanging branches slick with last night's rain. The path ended at a limestone mouth in the rock face. A cavern, shallow at first glance, just a cool pocket in the stone, but something about it made my skin prickle. I stepped closer and pressed my palms to the wall. The stone was not cold. It was warm, faintly pulsing. I had the unmistakable sense that it was breathing with me, rising and falling in rhythm. I jerked my hands back. That was when I heard the crunch of boots on leaves. A deep voice called from behind me, trying to get my attention. I turned to see a man in his late 30s standing at the edge of the path. He held a leash in one hand, a dark shepherd dog sitting patiently at his heel. The man was clean-shaven, his hair cut short, his clothing oddly old-fashioned for a hiker. Work shirt tucked into belted trousers, shoes polished though dusted with trail dirt. He said I looked pale, and that if I followed him, I could get some water at his farmhouse and have a rest. Everything about him The calm, directive tone, the patient dog, the fact that the nearest farm is long abandoned, told me I should be wary. And yet, I followed. We walked for what felt like too long to still be within park limits until the woods opened onto a property I recognized and didn't. The disused farm I'd seen from the trail was no ruin now. The pastures were green, the house whitewashed and neat, smoke curling from a brick chimney. A woman came out onto the porch to greet us, and immediately my knees buckled. It was Star, only she wasn't Star. Her hair was set in curls, a dowdy skirt to her shins. She was wearing a pale apron, like she just stepped out of an old magazine ad. The man, I thought, had kidnapped her, dressed her up like some 1960s housewife. But she smiled, welcoming the man back, under no clear duress. To me, she was polite, but unfamiliar, as if I were a pleasantly unexpected guest. The man explained it all, how he found me, how he thought I needed a rest. I said her name, Star, but she only tilted her head, polite, blank. She led me into the farmhouse, past a kitchen, warm with bread smells, past ticking clocks and wallpaper patterns I remembered from my grandmother's house. The man offered me tea. I accepted, my mind buzzing, half convinced I'd fainted back at the cavern, and this was some final lucid dream before dying. When they offered me a guest room for the night, I said yes. I had to be close to her, whatever she was right now. When the man retired to bed soon after, Star helped me make up the guest room. Her movements were unhurried, domestic. At one point, she looked at me, and I swore she recognized me. I wanted to shake her. I was ready for her to actually acknowledge me, her sister, to tell me she'd been kidnapped. But instead, she simply asked if I ever read Reader's Digest. I shook my head, confused. She explained an article she'd read last week about atoms, how everyone we know is made of atoms and quarks, and that the first she thought of when she read this was the idea taking these millions of discrete things that make a person, pulling them apart and reassembling them somewhere or someplace else. She said this like she was making conversation with a stranger. She laughed softly, then, like it was a charming, impossible idea. She wished me good night. I lay awake for hours. The house creaked around me and settled. I opened my eyes to the faint light of dusk. The air had changed, heavy with dust. The wallpaper hung in curled strips. The bed frame was the same, but rusted. Downstairs, the house was silent, empty, except for the man's dog, sitting patiently by the door. When I opened it, the dog padded out into the pale dawn, glancing back to make sure I followed. I did. It led me back through the trees until we were at the trailhead again. The sun was just cresting the ridge, and there, jogging up from the parking lot, ponytail swinging, was Star, dressed in her usual workout gear, smiling that inscrutable smile. She asked me if I was ready for our hike like it was any other Sunday. I follow her into the trail, let her lead, still digesting everything. She stopped to take sips of water from her Stanley cup and tell me things about her life, a recent Bumble date. This time around, I can't even find the trail to the cavern I'd gone down just yesterday, and I don't tell her anything about it. When we finished, we ended up back in the trail parking lot. She farewelled me with a hug and says she might call after her college classes on Wednesday. I drove straight to the precinct where the lead detective I'd been talking to works out of. The receptionist asked me to wait, so I walk out to sit in my car and get all my thoughts down in one place, get the story straight. I walked past a telephone pole in the lot, One of the first ones I'd affixed a missing poster to when I left the station last week. The missing poster's still there, but I froze. I walked up to it, real close. Star's picture is gone, replaced by a photo of a young woman of a similar age doing a similar pose. The exact same font and wording, down to the size and spacing, is below it. Went missing on the Flats Trail on Saturday. Please contact police if sighted. But it's not Star. The name is Helen. I raced to the next lot over, an ice cream shop next to the precinct, where my husband had started putting posters up. On the wall next to the door, Helen's face encased in a missing poster stares back at me. I wonder if someone out there is looking at a poster of me. I return to my car, which is where I am now, talking into my phone, just parked in the precinct lot, unsure what to do. I know if I go into my call log, I'll see the unanswered, hourly panicked calls I made to Star 2 weeks ago, but they're meaningless. Star's just texted me a photo of the pile of dishes her roommate hasn't washed that she saw upon arriving home. I thought it would help to describe where it all started, but sometimes you can't tell where it starts and ends.